Hey Leapers! Today I am going to be doing a sculpey bead project, and I know you guys have done a lot of sculpey, especially at Leap. It's one of our favorite activities, but I'm going to be doing something a little bit different today, and I'm going to be using this transparent sculpey. So this is kind of special. It doesn't come in the normal packages that you buy at, say, Michael's. You can get it at Blick, or you could probably get it online on Amazon. And what's cool about this is that when you bake it, it comes out completely clear. So I have never actually used it before, but I've read a couple of articles and watched a couple of YouTube videos and seen the outcome, and it looks like pretty awesome. So what I'm going to be using it for today is some bead making. So I do some jewelry. So this is one of the bracelet types that I make, these wrap bracelets, and they're lucided. And so I can show you guys how to lucid in another video. But that's basically a way of making braided cord. And you can add beads to it. And the problem is that you need beads that sort of have a bigger hole in them. So it's hard to find those in stores because usually beads are really small. So I'm going to be making some of my own beads. And so this is a little bit of an experiment for me because I've never done it before. But this seems like a great time to do it because we have a lot of extra time. And so I'm just going to go over my materials very quickly. Once again, it's the transparent sculpey that I'm using. Once it's baked in the oven, the same as any other regular sculpey, it will bake clear. And the reason that I'm using the clear is because there's a technique you can use to make it kind of look like other materials, like a clay that has little specks in it, or you can do custom colors. And so for the custom colors, I'm going to be using these alcohol inks. I just bought the primary colors so that I could basically mix whatever color that I wanted. And then I've got some play sand. So this is black. And this is going to give me the little specks that I'm looking for to make my bead look a little bit like stone. And you can get any of these things probably on Amazon instead of going into a store like Blick. I've also got some other sculpey clay. This is opal. And if you can see, there's like these little flecks in it, and I thought that might be also interesting to use. And I'm also wondering if that dries clear with the specks in it because it looks like it's the same color. I also have this little piece of moss that dried out. It was in like a terrarium that I bought, but it didn't make it. So I'm gonna try and reuse it, and I'm gonna crumple it up a little bit and put it in there and bake it. Kind of see what it looks like. Could give it a little bit of like texture or something interesting. I don't know. It's an experiment. This is my straw that I'm going to be forming my beads over. As you can see, it's going to give me sort of like a big hole in the middle, which is what I'm looking for. This straw came from like a water bottle, but you could use a chopstick or a wooden dowel, or you could probably use mom or dad's knitting needles. You guys are creative. You'll figure out something. And I've got some other colors too that are just normal sculpey. So I've got this one. It's called Tranquility, and it's one of my favorite colors. It's almost like a robin's egg. And then I've got this this kind of stone color, and this chocolate color. Because after this, I'm going to probably try to make some faux stone sculpey beads. And there are a lot of techniques you can look up for that kind of project, and it's been something I've wanted to do for a long time and never was able to, and now I'm going to do it. So let's start here. So I'm going to actually put the camera down here so that you can see where I'm working, and I'll probably keep it down the whole rest of the time because you don't need to see me while I'm doing this. You need to see what I'm doing. So here we go. I'm using my laptop camera, so I'm being a little bit creative. So let's go down here to my work area. Check it out. It's a paper plate. Woohoo! I've also got these little bowls to keep my desk more organized. It's been getting a little bit crazy because I've been doing so many projects the last couple of days to keep myself busy. But that's okay because I've had plenty of time to clean up too. So I'm gonna break these into little halves. So Sculpey that you buy in individual packs comes in like breakable sections, but I don't actually think I need all this clay. I don't know. We'll see. So that's maybe a little better. So oh, and shout out to Hannah if she watches this video. Yesterday we did some nail marbling, which was also an experiment, and I can show you guys how to do that too in another video if you're curious. Some of them work better than others, but it was super fun. So what I'm just doing right now is kneading the Sculpey. It's kind of hard, and I want it to be easier to work with because I'm going to be rolling it into beads, and but the heat from your hand is going to soften it up the more you work with it. So it's a good trick to remember when we go back to LEAP and go back to school, or you do this at home, is that you can get smaller details if your clay is squishier. So you can be more creative that way. Like for little eyes or little legs, you can break off smaller parts instead of having big clumps. Because, you know, it is hard to work with if it's not soft. And actually, to be honest with you, this transparent clay feels like super crumbly. So maybe don't like tear it apart. Like I said, I've never used this before, so all right, so what I'm gonna do, interesting, is I'm gonna open up the opal, and I'm hoping that this is also transparent, and I'm gonna work it together with this. And hopefully this is a little bit stickier, and then it won't be so crumbly. But if it is, that's good for you guys to know because we're learning it together. So this is it's a little bit less crumbly. But when I saw it worked, ooh, so my desk wobbles. So I have a drafting table desk, which means that it kind of goes up and down. I don't do a lot of drafting, but it's a nice big flat space for me to do my illustrations or any jewelry work if I'm sitting at my desk. And you just can't push down on it very hard because it tries to move on me. So, okay, well, I think that the more that I work this, and the more that I warm it up, and I wonder if I like put it in the microwave very briefly or something, if it will soften. So what I'm going to do to add some color to it, because I want there to be some like lavender color in here. Maybe it'll help soften it up a little bit. I don't know. Is I'm going to add some of this alcohol ink. And it's kind of like food dye, but it's not food dye because you cannot eat it and you should not put it in your mouth. And in fact, you should probably be wearing some gloves while you're doing this project because alcohol ink, well, it can stain your fingers, I think. I'm actually never worked on it. We never worked with it before. Actually, we worked with it before it leaked because Caroline used it for a super cool activity when we did our marbling for our holiday cards. Okay, so I'm using the end of my straw to kind of mix up my colors because I want to touch it as little as possible because I don't really want to get it on my fingers, but all of my gloves, my little plastic gloves, are at my workshop where I use things like epoxies, which are like very sticky glues that you don't want to get on your hands because they're super sticky. And they'll stick your fingers together. Which you guys have used super glue before, probably, so you know what I'm talking about. Alright, so this is mixing, and I might leave it kind of like not mixed all the way. You see how it's kind of like, well, marbled, kind of. And the reason I want to leave it like that for this first one is because I want to kind of test out the transparency of the clay. And so if I mix it all in, I might lose some of the transparency, and then I wouldn't kind of see that really cool aspect of it being clear. So this is kind of a big chunk. It's definitely less crumbly than it was the more I'm working with it. Wow, which I feel a lot better about because I was a little bit worried. So I'm gonna break a little bit of it off actually, so that I can make 2 beads. So we're gonna split that in half. I don't want to overwork it because I also want to put and I'm just going to roll it a little bit because that'll get it nice and warm. And then I'll also make it into that round ball that I'm looking for. So here's my bead so far. It doesn't look like much because it's, I didn't bake it yet. But it's got some opal sparkles in it. It's got some purple. So I'm going to have to think about how I'm going to get like a lavender color because this is more maroon. So that's probably something I'll be working on later. And then, like I said, it's getting on my hands. I did most of the mixing with the little straw to begin with, so it wasn't so bad. And I'm sure it'll wash off, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. But just to be safe, it's good to use gloves if you can find them. If not, it shouldn't stop you. So that's about how big my bead is going to be, which might be a little bigger than I want it, but we'll get to see some detail in the bead once it's baked if it's a little bit bigger because we can do more with it. So I'm going to squish it out right now because it's not done yet and I can just make it back into a bead. And I'm going to add some sand to make those like some little black specks to make it kind of look like it's stone. Because if you've ever looked at granite, I know you guys love rocks and digging for rocks and finding sparkly rocks. And I want this clay, even though it's clay, which is, I don't actually think that we call it clay, but I don't know how close to natural it is at this point. It may have been derived from clay, but there's a lot of dyes added to it to change it to make it like more fun and artsy and have nice bright colors to work with, and also so we can bake it in the oven. Anybody can use it and we don't have to have a kiln. So you guys probably have done ceramics in school and you know all about how you gotta bake your clays. So I'm gonna put I've got some down here. I'm just gonna try to suck those back up. And it kind of looks like salt, actually. You might be able, I mean, not salt, pepper. You might be able to use pepper in some of the tutorials that I was reading through. People were using natural objects, which is why I grabbed that moss, which I think would be better in a bigger bead, because possibly I don't have to break up the moss a ton, and you might see some of that structure and texture. I also have to remember that the clay is transparent. So if I don't see all of my little sand on the outside, that's okay, because I'll see it like inside, hopefully. Fingers crossed. All right, so I've got this little guy. I'm pretty excited because I have never done this before. And here's where my straw comes in. There's some clay in there. I'll have to get out. One thing I might do if I'm doing a lot of these is I might tape this over just so I don't get any clay in there, because I don't want to waste it, you know? So I've got my ball here, and I'm not going to squish it out beforehand, because when I press the straw in, it's going to squish, and I'm going to try to get in the middle as much as possible, and I'm going to, this is after I kind of round it into a ball in my hand. So I'm going to put it on top, I'm going to press, okay, so I'm getting my donut here. You know, maybe I actually don't want to tape the top, because I can use it kind of like this to make a nice round hole. I wasn't sure if it was going to come off. And guys, you know, you could kind of, if you don't want to make these beads, and that's cool, right? Because this is just some inspiration. You could definitely take this idea and use it to make like some little sculpey donuts with the other colors that you might have. Because look how cute it is. It's just a little donut. So this little donut, and I might take a tool. This kind of works. Or I might go get a chopstick or something. You see how this side, I don't actually know if you can tell. This side is nice and rounded as it goes in the hole. And this side, which was flat on my plate when I pressed the straw in, is got a little bit of an edge. And I kind of like them to match, because those are the details that you think about when you're making art. You're thinking about craft and doing things very carefully, taking your time. So I'm also going to make sure that there's no little pieces that are on top that I don't like. But I'm very excited about this, and I'm very curious about how it's going to come out. So I'm not going to fiddle this one too much. And honestly, this guy might be a little bit bigger than my original intent, because if I think about putting this bead on this bracelet, it's a little chunky, but we'll see. I don't know. We're just having fun. So I'm gonna press pause, and I'm gonna bake this. I'm gonna put it in the oven. So each of these Sculpey packages have directions on them. To my knowledge, they're pretty much, well, they're similar. They're not exact. Okay, so here's something that's important. For the translucent, I'm looking at the package right now, the oven needs to be at 275 degrees Fahrenheit, which is, I believe, the same for all Sculpey. I'll look at you now. So 275 in the oven, and then the amount of time depends on how thick your item is. So per 1/4 of an inch for most Sculpey is about 15 minutes. So at Leap, we usually put everybody's in for 15 minutes, or a little bit longer. And For the translucent stuff, it says 30 minutes per 1/4 of an inch. So if I look at the thickness of this wall, yeah, it's closer to 1/2 inch. So I might put this in for about 1/2 an hour in my oven. So I'm probably going to make a couple more as an experiment. And then I'm going to put them all in because 1/2 an hour is kind of a long time to just wait. So I want to do them all at once. So again, here's this little guy. And I will be back with the second half of this video to show you how they come out and then what you can do with them, because they're cute, but you know, it's good to have a plan. Okay. All right. Here we go.